Ka All India Safe Education Committee AISEC Meghalaya Mantakasngi ka Arpundutrik Unai Wing kala Pynlong ya ka Jingiathir Hakabayde ba ka National Education Policy na ka Bynta ki Jingpuli ki Bakham Shajong ha Meghalaya. Haga Nigasngi la Pinya ya ka Jingalang na ka Janet Street ka Bade ka Khot jong ka AISEC mat uba Bright Star Marbanyang ubalalong ukongsan. U Professor Lakhon Kamau la ai ka Jingkran Halor ka Phang Status of Universities in Meghalaya. U Dr. Bats Kamerbo la ai ka Jingkran Halor ka Phang State Government and Education Policy in Meghalaya. U Professor H. Srikan ubadi unohi kai jong ka school ba nehu u lakran Halor ka Phang students perceptions on 4-year undergraduate program. But u Dr. Irani u lakran Halor ka Phang UG teachers perceptions on 4-year undergraduate program. Ya ka ni ka Jingalang la Pynlong ha conference hall jong ka Kyang Nangba guest house hanehu ha ka balawan Ïashim Bynta na kinong hikai kisamla puli bat kiriu paukmat.
It's lovely to see so many of you, even though I actually don't know you in person, but I've been asked to give a little welcome address. And very quickly, just to tell you, we are all here because of the People's Education Policy, which is to stand up against and provide a solution, an alternative to the NEP 2020 that was pushed through, not even through protocol, Parliament, but just through a cabinet decision in the middle of COVID lockdown. The date was July 19th, 2020. The last thing anyone was thinking about was education policy. We were more thinking about when can we go and buy our vegetables, food. So some people have said, why is it taking so long? But you know, when you put a seed in the ground, you don't get the bush straight up. It takes seasons. And so FYUP, which has been the first attacked, took 4 years, and it is exactly 4 years that we now have been able to analyze, and a lot of you, resource persons, research scholars, professors, you know about analysis and compiling data. It doesn't just happen. So that's why we're here. I'm very delighted to welcome everyone who's here. Even though I don't know your name, I'm sure by the end of it we'll know each other. Meghalaya chapter NEP was started on the 30th of April, and there were a lot of teachers there. I wish some more were here today, but it's lovely to meet you all. With that, I would like to thank very much the people who are going to be chairing and speaking today. But first and foremost, I would like to extend on behalf of Meghalaya chapter the very hard work that has gone to Professor Shrikant, how he has galvanized and mobilized us all. So can we just give him a round of applause, please? So full of vim and vigor, excellent man. And so with that, welcome to higher education in Meghalaya under the NEP and introspection. And then our chief guest, it's very, very, very lovely to invite you and to see you here. Bright Star Well Marbanyang NLA from Maulai. The floor is yours. Thank you.
I just want to put some of what I see as far as the new education policy is concerned, especially when it comes to my state. Yes, when you talk about education, it reminds me of what Malcolm said. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. And this is very much relevant when you talk about our state. In fact, we are so sorry. In fact, as citizens of the state, sometimes we feel ashamed when we look at different data that are being presented with regards to the condition of education as a whole, especially in the state of Meghalaya. We are at the bottom as far as education is concerned. Let's not talk about higher education, but if we go by the bottom-up approach, right from the school level, when you talk about our education, it is, as ma'am said, it is in a very sorry state of affairs. And I'm glad that today we are here to discuss, especially as persons whom I feel this is the right crowd, this is the right place where we can talk about the present scenario, especially when it comes to our state. In fact, with Madam, like what Madam has just said, Kong Patricia, we had an informal discussion when it comes to our state, and especially when it comes to education in our state. I've just informed Kong Patricia that one day I met one of my friends who was working with the underprivileged children in one of the locality in Pynlong, which I feel that I won't name it. And surprisingly, what she told me, in that small locality, what she find out is that there are more than hundreds of school dropout children in just one small locality. That is the situation that we are in presently in the state, and that is the situation that we are in, especially when we talk about higher education in the state of Meghalaya. And when you look at the NEP 2020, when you look at the objective of the NEP, especially when it comes to higher education in Meghalaya under the new education policy, it is being implemented through a government-led effort, and that is very much visible. In fact, I've talked about this as soon as the NEP 2020 was announced by the government of India. Our Chief Minister, he was so enthusiastic, where he was the first person and the first Chief Minister, in fact, who said that we are the first state, we will be the first state to implement NEP 2020. But the sad part is, I think our Chief Minister has not gone through the policy as a whole. And when you look at the higher education in Meghalaya under the NEP 2020, as I said, it is being implemented through a government-led effort to foster the multidisciplinary and then flexible and skill-oriented learning. I'm not saying that these are all wrong. In fact, it is very much needed, even in our state, and especially when you talk about the skill-oriented learning. But then, at the end of the day, when you talk about different schemes, different policies, or even for that matter, different laws that are being passed, whether nationally or even in the state, okay, on paper, everything is good. But when it comes to the implementation part, that is where we are lacking behind.
First of all, I would like to begin with the 3 I's related to the teacher. Not the capital I, but the small I. The small I's. I number 1 is inspire. Number 2 is ignite. And number 3 is instill. There is a saying which says that a good teacher can inspire hope, ignite imagination, and instill love for learning. That was said by Brad Henry in the context of America. I would like to add to what Henry said, that a good teacher can inspire hope, ignite imagination, and instill love for learning, provided the system of education is conducive enough. So I think with that I will continue. We have different analogies with regard to the teacher. One that I would like to share here is that a teacher is sometimes looked or seen as a driver. If a teacher is a driver, education system is the vehicle, students are definitely the passengers. Ladies and gentlemen, under the NEP in Meghalaya, in the undergraduates, we are going crazy, where the driver does not know the road and the passengers don't know the destination. So we are going crazy here. And these colleges, the institutes, they are like dalals, showing notifications for advertisements of different sorts, calling for admissions, calling students shayo, 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 and putting all of them in the place to get the money. So that is the state of affairs that we are undergoing right now under this NEP curriculum. So with that, I think I will just share with you, because this is basically the presentation on the UG teachers' perception. UG teachers' perceptions on FYUP in Meghalaya. But these perceptions, most of them, they are apprehensions. So this is only a pilot study. I will just share with you regarding the respondents that we are giving the questionnaires through the Google form. They are basically teachers coming from different colleges, 19 of them. Some of the teachers have got PhD with them. 38% of them PhDs, 9 MPhil, and 42 only postgraduates. Teachers come from different disciplines: social sciences, humanities, general sciences, and commerce. The teachers include people who have 3 years to 30 years of experience. A number of teachers teaching core and minor courses remain as per the NEHU ordinance, 4 in most courses and 5 in some. Some colleges appointed 1 or 2 extra faculty positions in the college for teaching AEC, SEC, MDC, and BTC courses. So this is a little bit about the respondents. Now I will just share with you the concluding remarks from the questionnaire that we have circulated. Around 43 questions have been framed, and I will make it very short. Some of the concluding remarks that we can compile from the responses are as follows. Number 1, overloaded curriculum and limited time. Teachers express in the report that the FYUP syllabus is too vast and semesters too short to complete it meaningfully. Limited classrooms and packed timetable prevent extra classes. Learning is becoming rushed rather than reflective. Number 2, rising workload without support. Most of the teachers handle extra courses like AEC, VEC, and all that, as already said by Professor Srikan, without proper training. Added duties, committee work, documentation, exams, etc. reduce academic focus. Very few colleges have recruited additional faculty based on the responses that we receive. Number 3, infrastructure and faculty gaps. Teachers express there are insufficient resources and experts to implement the NEP, especially the research components, effectively. Rural colleges face even greater challenges. Number 4, assessment pressure. Teachers correct 100 to 450 scripts per semester. That means including both the internals and the external examinations. Higher student-teacher ratios make detailed feedback impractical, turning evaluation into a formality. Number 5, student challenges. Dropouts are happening all around the place. We don't have the exact number though, but one of the reasons is because of the exam pressure. And of course, poverty is also coming next. Some colleges see a decline in admissions, especially from the weaker and rural background students. Number 6, risks in multidisciplinary implementation. Teachers fear that learning is becoming superficial due to too many subjects. Ironically, teachers have become more multidisciplinary than students. Number 7, concerns on CUET. Many teachers view CUET as unnecessary and disadvantageous to marginalized communities. So these are the main findings that we have compiled from the responses that we have got from around 80 teachers. Last night I checked, it was 80 in total. Earlier it was 79. Okay. So now the conclusion. We believe that education system should be student-centric. Should be student-centric, but at the end of the day, let me say this. When reform strengthens the teacher, it strengthens the student. When it burdens the teacher, it burdens the future. Holistic education should focus and take everybody on board. Though we are student-centric, but we cannot do that at the expense of the teachers.
As you can see, the title is Status of Universities in Meghalaya, but more of an introspection really, because we have really, and I will restrict myself to the university level, because there are other colleagues who will speak about at the other levels as well. Now, let's go where we started. When you look at the basis of NEP 2020, these are some of those claimed problems that was given by the government. Some of them I've highlighted, and you will please pay attention on the red ones. If you look at it, there are many, but I have just picked up some which are more relevant to the discussions today. Now, if you look at it, says a severe fragmented higher education ecosystem. please pay attention to that, because towards the end I'll come and we'll deliberate on that. It says limited teachers and institutional autonomy, which is actually a joke, to be very frank. The one who has proposed it actually is the one who is breaking it all through. Then you have inadequate mechanism for merit-based career management and progression of faculty and institutional leaders. Again, it's a farce, because we have seen vice chancellor after vice chancellor how they have used their position to break this very fundamental aspect of NEP, which is totally against the interests of the students, the teachers, and of course the country as a whole. Of course, it also speaks about suboptimal governance and leadership in higher education institute. And this is again, after going through what we have in this university, this appears to me like a joke, to be very frank. You know, leadership of higher educational institute, and you send people who have zero knowledge as far as the leadership quality is concerned. Then there is an ineffective regulatory system. Look at this, a very nice term they have put in the objective itself. An ineffective regulatory system. I don't know what system they are following at this point of time, when there is total anarchy in the university. Somehow the regulatory people are simply watching from a distance and allowing the university to be in disarray. And this is not only true for NEHU, this is also true for everywhere else in the country. They also speak of something very interesting, value-based education, which highlights all these fancy terms that you can see: humanistic, ethical, universal human value of truth, righteousness. Then they talk about scientific temper and so on and so forth. Now each of them, if you dissect, you will realize that they are doing just the contrary of that. And that's where I think it is very important that I'll come towards the end, you will see why I feel that, you know, most of these write-up that we have been given are actually a joke as far as the new education, the national education policy is concerned. Then of course, it is supposed to provide us the flexibility to offer different courses. Again, no flexibility whatsoever. There was a rigid system that was given. Simply say adopt it, and there are people sitting in the chair who was doing everything that against the interests of the academic bodies to make sure that this flexibility totally gone. Then they talk about internationalization, and this is what I was more fancied. You know, when you are talking about exchange of students going from here to abroad, from abroad students will come here. For that you have to provide an education system, a teaching learning process that is really attractive. But today, if you look at our own students are not coming to this university to study, and any other central university, if you look at, I fully agree with our friends who have said that the dropout rate has really gone up, simply because when we are not making our own institution attractive to local students here, leave aside trying to make it attractive to the national and international, and hence these are parts. And they say, we'll do this in order to make ourselves the Vishwa Guru. And this term I highlighted in red, and you will see maybe a couple of times I've done it, simply because it's something that we have to really break it into pieces. Simply because, you know, when you are trying to project that you will become a Vishwa Guru or the world leader, so to say, the tallest leader in the world, you have forgotten that there needs to be works to be done. You cannot sleep at home and imagine that you will become Vishwa Guru one day when you wake up. Of course, it speaks about effective governance and leadership, which is again a farce. It's simply because, you know, when you look at this, they said, let's create a culture of excellence and innovation. And then you send people who have no idea or no inclination towards promoting innovation. And not only that, they will have no idea of how self-governance happens. And all these are fancy terms they have put, and it says merit-based appointments of institutional leaders. And this is again a joke that we have suffered for last 10, 12 years. We have suffered joke with Professor Srivastava as the VC, and now Professor Shukla as the VC. So this is to us like a joke, to be very frank. And then it says, let's forget about your Act, Statute and Ordinance, let's bring in Board of Governors. And they propose that there should be Board of Governors. This is a totally, a very divisive mechanism that they have proposed, where they will try to do away with our Act, Statute and Ordinance and bring in such Board of Governors who will decide everything that happens in the university, and that from day-to-day governance and so on and so forth. And they also say these legislations will be brought out which will supersede what is already in existence. And we already have our Nehu Act, Statute and Ordinance, to cite an example of Nehu. They are trying to bring in something that will supersede it, which means they will override everything that we have done for decades and grown as a university, and bring in somebody sitting on top of us and trying to govern and say how we have to conduct ourselves. And similarly, they go on speaking about high academic qualifications and leaderships and blah, 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 you see. And then they also look at, towards the end, if you look, leaders of the heritage will demonstrate strong alignment to constitutional values and the vision of the institution. Again, totally, when you look at their action, none of them really relates, because they have total disconnect has been displayed from the society where they serve to that of the positions they occupy. And of course, they say the selection will be carried out by an eminent expert committee. We already have a search committee which have recommended people for positions. That also doesn't work, because ultimately somebody sitting in Delhi will decide whether number 5 becomes number 1 or number 1 becomes out of the list totally. And that is decided by the minister. As long as these mechanisms are really not foolproof, you will have jokes of this kind that will be put to us every time. So let me come to the contradictions then. Having known these, see, frankly, if you ask me, you know, when I read the NEP document, NEP 2020 document, I find there is something in it, to be very frank. But then when you look at the actions that are being taken by people who are supposed to run the administration in all higher education institutes, including the universities of our kind, you will see a lot of contradiction. One, they talk about in the vision that there should be scientific temperament should be enhanced. And then you come out with schemes on doing research on cow urine, and everything else seems to be focused on that. And you will be surprised. There is a CMAP study which is trying to make sure that you derive these biomolecules in collaboration with the Go Vigyan Anusandhan Kendra Nagpur, where you are going to treat diseases like cancer and diabetes and hypertension and so on and so forth. And you won't believe these diseases were not known in ancient text, and that's what it says. And if you look at Uttar Pradesh, they have gone a little more further. They have said we will bring out treatment based on cow for almost 19 diseases. The problem is all cow-based treatment that is being proposed, that range from cancer, diabetes, your high blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, and so on and so forth, the cardiovascular diseases and so on, have no idea, because they were never mentioned in the text of the ancient. Charak Samhita is the textbook of all Ayurveda, that whoever know a little bit of Ayurveda will know that this is the book they refer to as their holy grail. And you won't believe, look at what does this book say? It talks about the urine type. Look at this urine, from Gomutra to Kharamutra, donkey, and so on and so forth. And one Mahapurush came and he added human urine as well, that it can also be used for therapeutic purpose. Me as a student of biochemistry, who have learned science throughout, to me this is urine. It is a nitrogenous waste product that you need to excrete out. Your kidney will do the job. Whatever is supposed to excrete out is to be excreted, not to be re-ingested, because then you are totally against the nature. Nature has produced a system where there is, when you intake, there is a digestion, there is an assimilation, then comes excretion. And as student of science, we know only urine in this form. And any other purpose, if you tell me, I think only God can save us if somebody comes from heaven. The other contradiction is the union budget. In 25-26, of course, 1.28 trillion was allocated. Again, you know, a little increase compared to the last year, but the least in case of last 4 years, because earlier during the 24-25, there was 7.4 increase from 23-24. The figures are given here. No matter what it says, the figure is still far lesser than what NEP has been proposed. 6% of the GDP was supposed to be proposed. And if you look at the challenges that we have, yes, there has been increase in terms of the quantum of money that is being spent, but we still have problem of quality, infrastructure, the equitable distribution of resources. You go to any university and compare it with Nehu or any other university, you will realize that we stand nowhere, simply because we don't have that kind of funding. And if there was funding, it has been cut severely, that we are totally handicapped at this point of time. Of course, we have been hovering around 3 to 4% of the GDP, and of course this fluctuation depends on your economic condition. The target should be that we should reach 6% of the GDP as far as the long-term development is concerned, which never happens. Not only that, we are falling far behind many developed countries. Look at the data of 2023, 6% in case of US, 6.13% China, Germany 4.6, prior to COVID, they were spending almost 9.8% of their GDP on education, and this only excluding the R&D. You have Japan 7.3, India still hovers around 4.6% of the total GDP. Now that's where the story is. So let's come to this summary. When you look at these realities that is happening in the university system, in the education system, and I'll focus myself on the university, there has to be now, what we have to see is that maybe this new policy that is coming out, which will be brainstormed over the period of time, will rely on what we have to segregate is there is an amalgamation of scientific temperament with mythology. And that's the most disturbing as a university, as a teacher of a university. For me, this is the most disturbing element, because if you are not segregating science from mythology, you will have serious problem. You will believe on what has been told, what has been written, no scientific proof whatsoever, and there's no, neither you have a fossil record of it, there is no document that can show that, yes, this was in existence, this is an imagination of somebody. So please, we have to, in this, whenever your new policy comes, you have to ensure that there is segregation of scientific temperament from mythology. Not only that, we also have to shun this one-size-fits-all approach. And this is dangerous, because you look at university, earlier we had, science always had practical components, arts may or may not necessarily have a practical component. But now you are trying to tell everyone, everybody does project. Now problem is here. Now to my students, out of say 26, 30 students that we have, and some department have 60, 65, maybe 3/4 of them are least bothered about going to research. They know that this is not my, I'm not going beyond master degree, I'm not going anywhere else. Because we see students, when you put them in the lab, particularly in science, you have to, it is an experimental one, not really theoretical. When they do experiment, you see their whole body language changes. You know this person is never going to apply for PhD whatsoever with the condition. Yet, you are forcing everyone to do project work. And that's where I have serious issues, because, you know, this is where, and there are more dangerous trends coming. I have heard that they are also proposing 1 full year to be project rather than 1 semester, which is the 4th one at this point of time. That is going to be really dangerous, and we'll all fight it in the academic council as and when it comes, because what we should propose is even the project work should not be 100% project. I would say add some more papers. Make in science, for example, in place of practical, you put a component of project or dissertation. That's perfectly okay, because you're just replacing one practical component. But to make the whole semester into a project, and there is more problem, because, you know, having project is one story. The other story is the funding part. Who will fund 60 students doing project in a class in arts? Of course, for us it's much more easier. We still have problem. We have 26 students, for example. And similar is for all other sciences. But think of any arts or humanities, they have 60, 70, 80 students in a class, and you have zero financial support from the university to support your 4th semester project work. And that's where it is important that we need more funding, and funding has to be really pinpoint.
The topic that I'm given is on the state government and the policy towards education, that is in the context of Meghalaya. So when you talk about the policy of the government of Meghalaya towards education, I will speak in general. I will not focus only on higher education, because education is interrelated from pre-primary up to the university level education, so I'll try to address the whole aspect of education. Before 1976, when the Parliament passed the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, the subject of education was a state subject, but it was transferred, was made as the subject of the concurrent list in 1976 by the Parliament. And therefore, before 1976, it was very much the prerogative of the state government to make policies and to make laws on education in the state. But if you see it in the context of Meghalaya, Meghalaya became a separate state in 1972. But even though education was transferred from the state list to the concurrent list, but it is very much within the power of the state government to make policies and make laws on education. But if you see the government of Meghalaya, for a very long time, they functioned without any stated policy. There was no policy adopted, and the first policy that was adopted by the government of Meghalaya was in September 2018. And we congratulate the government for the adoption of this policy. In fact, if you read the policy, it is in certain areas it is a very promising policy, but in certain areas also, if you read minutely, you will see the areas of concern that we as the educationists and the people of the state, especially in the context of the state of Meghalaya, where we have a large number of people living below poverty line or just above poverty line, it is a matter of concern. And when you see the policy of the government of Meghalaya towards education, we have to see the kind of rules, regulations, the executive orders that the government has been issuing from time to time. And when you look at the policy of the government or the kind of the system that the government put in place in the context of education, you can clearly see the footprint or the legacy of the Assam government. If you see the Assam government and the Assam state and the Meghalaya state in context of education till the 1980s, it was following more or less the same model, where we have the government school, which are very less in number. Then majority of schools, they are in the government aided category. And we also have the private schools. But somewhere, the Assam government improved upon the system where the government aided educational institutions were provincialized, where the service conditions of the teachers were made better, and they were more or less made as the government institutions, though not fully, because those institutions that have been provincialized, they are still run by the governing bodies, not by the government directly as such. And in Meghalaya, the kind of policy that the government followed was the government did not directly enter into the education, rather encourage the private bodies to establish educational institutions in the state, thereby, and then after that, they extended aid. But the problem with Meghalaya was, when it comes to extending aid to educational institutions, if you compare the state of Meghalaya, from which we draw the legacy, when they provincialized, it was made by the act of the legislature, not because of political connections. But if you examine minutely the kind of the granted aid that the government of Meghalaya extended to educational institutions post 1970s, meaning from 1980s onwards, and especially from 1990s, 2000s onwards, you'd find that the kind of aid that any particular institution would be getting from the government depends on how close you are to the power center, whether the education minister belongs to that particular constituency or not. For example, I'll give you, in somewhere in 2011, or not 2011, 2008-9, when one college was proposed to be provincialized, it so happened that that college belonged to the constituency of the chief minister. In fact, we have had all the colleges quite older than even that one, but because they are not connected with the center, with a power center, they are not extended the aid. And if you examine this, happens from the school level up to the college level, and it is because of this that education in Meghalaya is highly politicized, including the management. And it depends on the political connection that they are extended the aid. And therefore, if you examine the kind of system that we have in the state, the educational institutions, they become as the playing field of the politicians. And ultimately, because it has become the political football field, you'll find that the educational institutions has not been able to serve the society to the fullest extent. Rather, it has become the incentive for the political class. And here, when you see the policy of the government, as I said, because it encouraged the private individuals, the private organizations to establish schools, colleges, Therefore, you'd find that the kind of educational institutions, especially at the college level, because these educational institutions are started by the private organizations which lack the fund, and therefore almost all of them, they started the general education, and majority of them offering art stream, not even science stream. Ultimately, what happened in the context of Meghalaya, we have the overloading of general education, but we lack the professional, technical, and even the institutions to train teachers. Therefore, since 1991, with the change paradigm of education in the country, where the education is considered not any longer as something to empower the citizens, but as a commodity to be bought and sold in the market to get jobs, you'd find that there were thousands and thousands of students migrating from the state to other parts of the country in pursuit of their education. And also, we have realized this in the recent past, where the government of India insisted on the fact that the teachers who are recruited at the school level, they need to be trained. We have the situation where the students from the state, they have to go to West Bengal and other parts of the country pursuing their B.Ed. And we don't know what kind of universities, what kind of education institutions they are, but at least they are getting the certificates. And these students now, they are being appointed at the school level. And you wonder what will happen in the future.
We, in order to understand how FYUP is working in undergraduate colleges, we approach both the students and the teachers through Google Form. So, we ensured that it reaches out to as many people as possible. And interestingly, though it is a pilot study, beyond our expectations, the people have responded. So far, we have 360 students from different parts of Meghalaya have responded to that. They belong to nearly 15 colleges. And not only colleges in and around Shillong, but also colleges from Jingiathir and Garo Hills also. So, in a way, it is widely representative of the students because there are colleges which are, we can call them elite, and there are also colleges which are rural based. So, it is, and the students belong to different disciplines, arts, science, commerce, and this one. So, I feel that there is quite a it is a representative of the people's or students' voice. So it is from that side. I will not talk more about it. Maybe that I will write a detailed article in Shillong Times if ma'am permits. But I will go to the facts. So now actually the persons we inquired, students, is the 5th semester students. 5th semester students, because this is the first batch of students who joined FYUP in 2003, and now they are in 5th semester writing exam, and they will be completing their this one 3rd year this year itself, and they will be passing over to 4th year of FYUP next year in the during the next academic this one. So it is keeping that in view. We will see one after another. I request you to show the next slide. You can ask. Actually, these are the different colleges from where we have got response from the students. The 16 colleges, and you can see that there are quite a few important colleges who have the students have responded. Now these students, where are they? How did they get in? The next one. Next. So here you can see that when this FYUP started, CUET was also there, but you can see that hardly but some 26% of the people had attempted CUET at that time. So even without CUET, people were admitted then, and even now it happens. We inquired from others also that till now, for different reasons, CUET is not compulsory, and all colleges are admitting students without CUET, and we do not know what happens to this concession that we have been given so far in future. Okay, now please see, this is the FYUP curriculum that the university has adopted. Here we have a major course, minor course, MDC course, AEC, CEC, SEC, VAD, VET, then you can see internship, dissertation. All these are part of FYUP. I will not talk about it. I will see what is the impact of this change, and this is what has been introduced after 2023. Now you can see what has happened. What was the earlier system? The earlier system, we had a 3-year degree where you can see that there were major papers and there were also minor papers. In addition to that, there was MIL and environment. That was the kind of papers that we were offering.